All right, welcome to Gun Talk Nation. Again, I'm at the bar. KJ's in the game room, and then we've got a special guest with us, Chris Ellis from Timney Triggers. Chris, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm up here hunkered down in West Virginia, my little hometown, so everything's fine in my world right here.
It sounds like a good place to be hunkered down in rural West Virginia.
Yeah, we're really good at socially isolating. We've been doing it for, I don't know, a couple hundred years. So my day consists of working a little bit, running out to the farm. Turkey season started yesterday. So turkey out in the morning, come back, do a little work, take a nap, do a little bit more work, and go to bed early and rinse and repeat. So
nice, very nice.
Chris is actually in God's country. I mean, because he can escape anytime he wants like that. He can go out shooting in the backyard, whatever he wants. That, man, I'm a little bit jealous, I'm not going to lie, because you can shoot whenever you want.
Well, my wife and I made a conscious decision. We're both from West Virginia, and when we started, raising kids, we were like, where do we want to raise these kids? What part of the country? She's a teacher. I'm a PR guy, can live anywhere, but West Virginia's home. It's a little difficult. We don't have a whole lot of major airports. There's not a whole lot of activity going on, but we just find it home. And I don't want to speak in absolute, but I would really hate to leave West Virginia. Knock on wood, 20 some years in the industry, I haven't had to move. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's good, man. Well, for those who don't know, I thought we'd give a little background on who you are and your history. I mean, I know right now you are PR and marketing for Timney Triggers, but you've done a lot of stuff in the gun world and hunting and shooting industry for a long time. Maybe give them a little background.
Sure. I graduated Marshall University in 1995, and at that time I couldn't find a job. I graduated as a park ranger, so I started an outfitter service and a guide service here in West Virginia. Rode a lot of people down whitewater rivers and caught smallmouth bass, and took a lot of people turkey hunting and deer hunting and stuff, and that was a great life. I really enjoyed that, but when my wife and I decided to have children, you got to slow down a little bit. So I went to work for the state of West Virginia, DNR and tourism, as a PR guy. Mm-hmm. And worked there for several years until my wife went back to work, and she was like, hey, man, you've always talked about hanging your own shingles. So I did in about 2005 and worked freelance for, 15 years almost.
Yeah.
And actually, Timney was my first client, one of my first clients. Okay. So I've been working with John and John Veer and Timney for a long, long time. And we got to growing so much. We got a different plan, and he asked me if I wanted to come on and get a plan. And I went on a couple of years ago full-time with Timney. It's been my passion. It's kind of simple, but when I first started talking about triggers 15, 16 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of people talking about them. So it's been one of my passions, and it's grown, and it's got a lot of growth yet. It's a lot of fun.
Well, on Gun Talk Nation, we like to talk about stories and tell stories. And we're going to go all over the place here, but Timney is a pretty interesting story in itself. And it's a long history. I know it's one of those companies that it's like your dad and your grandfather, used Timney. So I think a lot of people have not only knowledge of it, but a real trust of it.
Yeah, it's been around 75 years next year, will be our 75th anniversary. So it was born out of necessity of World War II, folks coming back from the war, and they had these service rifles, and they were proud of them. Man, we won the war, right? What they really wanted to do was go deer hunting. So Alan Timney at that time helped them figure out Enfield and Springfield and Mauser rifles, how to replace the trigger on their kitchen table, because they knew if they wanted to become very, very accurate at long range with some of these simple military-grade style rifles, they needed to start with the trigger. So that was the birth of Timney. Timney's DNA is home gunsmithing and hunting. That's what we do today.
So you have all these this PR background, and especially with Timney, and for a lot of our viewers, they're outside of the firearms industry. What are some stories? Because a lot of guys, like, you'll take them hunting. Like, you'll take media members hunting and stuff like that. What are some of the better hunts that you've actually had on a media event?
Well, right now I'm a diehard turkey hunter, and I'm a diehard whitetail guy. But for me, anything in the American West it's just magical to be. And you got to think, Timney's been around a long time by listening to the customer. So we kind of get a little heads up on the trend, like a shotgun trigger, the 870 trigger fix. So we would take that. When I first started turkey hunting, it was pretty much just full chokes, and beaded barrels and number 5 lead, well, that game has changed so much. And we use the outdoor media's help to get us in front of that curve, because I remember there was some Texas hunts, turkey hunts, where it was Trigicon scopes or Trigicon optics. Indian Creek chokes, the choke tubes went down. Timney, because if you want to hit the same place twice, the trigger's got to break the same place twice. So those kind of hunts get me excited because I can see a birth of a new part of the industry coming. Same with the AR-15. And same with right now, PRS shooting and long range shooting. And it's really cool working with an evangelistic a bunch of customers who say, hey, we're talking about this, whether it's long distance antelope hunting, long distance shooting, turkey hunting, and it all comes down to accuracy. And hunters especially, are always, bow hunters are the worst, but rifle hunters are always looking for something, some little form of accuracy to help them out. So to answer your question, I really enjoy taking a bunch of media folks and let's go on a management bull hunt where we're going to try to shoot 300 or 400 yards. It's a very long shot for a lot of folks. Or let's go to South Florida, and shoot some turkey birds with some TSS loads, holographic sight, a good trigger, that kind of stuff. That makes me crack a little bit.
Now turkey hunting, I think some people might, if they don't know any better, they go putting an upgraded trigger into a shotgun, you can't miss, right? You're sitting still.
Yes, you
with
can.
A shotgun. So, I know you have, but tell us stories about, turkey hunting, people on their first time, people missing turkeys. Because I know that for a lot of our listeners are probably going, I don't understand. You're shooting a shotgun at 30, 40 yards and you're sitting still.
Well, again, when I grew up, a 20-yard shot, a 25-yard shot was a long shot, So now when people started getting into this game with decoys and they even do fanning, they fan turkey, they're getting into turkey situations more in fields, more and more every year and more in open areas. And they're taking longer shots, which means if you don't practice at those distances or you're not used to it, you can pull right pretty easy with a bad trigger on a shotgun. Shotgun triggers are made to slap, right?
Sure,
That's what they were designed to do.
Yeah. They're not thought of as being precision.
Right. But if you're trying to take an imprecise weapon, which is a shotgun, right? It's not known for precision. That's why it's got such a big, spread. But when you're trying to choke that down into very, very, very tight constriction, and you're trying to hit the same place twice, it's a learning curve. But the results can be really, really fun. I've seen people take their first turkeys at 50 yards and 60 yards, and they're just like, I had no earthly idea,
That's awesome.
Now this leads me into because you mentioned something that's really interesting is there's a big disconnect between what happens on the range at a target, a standstill target, and what happens in the woods on live game. How does a trigger change that performance for these guys who are kind of on the fence on, is there any difference? What am I going to see a difference in the woods and on the range? Which I think you can, but I'm horrible on the range. Like I am awful, and Ryan will even say Ryan will even say it.
We got to dive into this.
Get me in front of an animal.
What's the difference between shooting at targets and shooting at animals? You've seen it, Chris. Tell.
Oh, there's a big difference. And KJ's right. I don't spend a lot of time at the range. I'm blessed to have a farm, so I'm shooting off my backpack. I'm shooting off either prone. I'm shooting leaning against a tree. If you're going to practice, you got to practice like you play, because I've never been on an elk hunt where I carried around a bench, or I've never been on a turkey hunt where I carried around a bench. So bench rest shooting is a much different sport, and it really doesn't translate into hunting at all. It doesn't.
Right.
But what it allows you to do is become more accurate, see how accurate you can actually become off the bench. Again, I put no weight into that because that's not how you hunt. The people that impress me are sending me pictures of targets or splashes on steel where, hey, man, I shot this at 402 yards off my butt on a field. Or I shot it leaning against a tree. That kind of stuff. And you got to remember, today we are so blessed with – there are so many great – off-the-shelf rifles right now, much great ammo choices, so many great trigger choices now. You can get custom performance, off the shelf, upgrade optics, upgrade triggers, play with a couple factory loads, and it's not hard to become a long range shooter now compared to it was a couple years, 10 years ago.
That is a whole different subject that I'd like to talk about, because I'm so mad that I built this beautiful custom rifle, and you can buy the same thing for half the price right now. I mean,
you were just a little ahead of the curve.
A little bit ahead of the curve, and it just hit me in the pocketbook. So,
but what kind of trigger does that gun have, though?
It's got a Timney in it.
Well, there you go.
That's what I put into it. So
now, Chris, is there somebody, and you've taken a ton of people out into the field, is there someone who comes to mind who is a really good shot on game? Any stories come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of riders that are really, really, really good shots, and there's some riders that aren't. Probably one of my greatest joys in 20-some years of taking folks hunting is I got to hunt with Walt Berger, the founder, creator of Berger Bullets.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I was doing PR for him, and they had come out with a VLD, a very low drag bullet, came from the bench rest community. And a group of hunters, again, I love this, where it just comes up natural. It's just organic. A group of hunters started using those bullets for hunting. And Eric Stecker at that time was the CEO, whatever, president. And he said, we don't know much about hunting. Can you get a group of fellas together and girls and guys and go test these things? And we tested for a couple of years and found some great results. Yeah. And to cap that all off, we went to New Zealand and shot a red stag. And I got to watch Walt Berger hunt,
Wow.
Red stag.
That's cool.
He wasn't.
It was like, that is just.
Was he a hunter before that, or did he do much hunting?
He grew up as a hunter, but he fell into that. He's Hall of Fame bench rest guy.
Oh yeah.
He fell into that bench rest world for a long time, and I saw that spark get turned on when all of a sudden people were calling, thinking this BLD bullet might be a decent bullet at long range for hunting. And it is, it's a great bullet. So
I have a story about when I was younger, before I did a lot of hunting, I would go to the range with my dad. And of course he was writing articles, and we'd shoot a bunch of different guns and sight them in and test them. I got pretty good at sighting in guns and shooting targets at 100 yards from a bench. I mean, I could shoot nice little groups, but one of my first deer hunts, I had a 6-point walk out at, 80 yards. And I'm just trying to get the perfect settle right in the perfect spot, because this is just like I do on 100-yard targets. And then he walked off. I mean, I was in his vitals the entire time. Just pull the trigger, Ryan.
Yeah. But, minute of deer.
But I was a minute of deer, but I was in that bench rest zone. I hadn't done a lot of, all right, that's good enough. Go ahead and press the trigger. And for me, I lost that deer because it took minutes after where I was like, just go ahead and shoot them. You don't have to look for the perfect shot.
Yeah.
Well, I learned a lot. I grew up in West Virginia where whitetail hunting is that's just what everybody does, So I think I was 10 years old when I killed my first whitetail. So do the math, 40 years of killing whitetails. But I didn't realize it, to your point, how bad it was until I went to Gunsight and did I think it was a 250 bolt action course or whatever, where there are no benches and you shoot a lot of freehand and you figure out your body style. And I got a bad back and you got a bad knee. And how do we figure out how to become the most accurate with a backpack, maybe some shooting sticks, and a rifle, bolt action rifle. And Ryan, to your point, you leave that course and you are pretty deadly, or you are pretty tight end. At least you know what tools you have, again, with your body and your backpack and a rifle, how to make that shot and how to make that shot quick, especially when deer runs out there at 70 yards,
Yeah. And it's courses like that I think are underestimated. And I think those are some of my best memories within the industry, are not necessarily all the hunts. The hunts are really great and I love them, and each of them has a special place. Sure. But you take a group of people and put them in a gun site, or Ryan, you just went to a long range course last year.
FTW, they do a great job out there in Texas.
And you put a guys in that, and you're all firing the same rounds. You're seeing the same targets. You know, you're building a bond on those trips. But my gosh, they put you through the ringer, and you do. You're right, Chris. To your point, I mean, you come out deadly, you come out lethal, and you come out knowing what to expect beyond that 100 yards.
I think you also get to start being comfortable with what's your limit. You know, maybe you figure out I'm very comfortable out to 450 yards, but then you start realizing 450 to 580, it looks really similar out there. And then you realize everything changes in that next 130 yards a lot.
But what's happening, here's the deal. What's happening right now is that we're developing technology. I mean, look at Sig Sauer right now. They're developing technology built into optics that tell you not how lethal you are out to it's how your ammunition is going to perform.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know, and then that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. You know, one of the things I learned when we were out at FTW was we had rifles and we had bipods, and we had our backpacks, and we could use our backpacks. And I'd use the bipod, and I'd kind of rest on my back hand kind of on the backpack or whatever, and it was going okay. I was making a lot of shots. But a couple days in, I don't know if it was on purpose or accident, but I started figuring out that if I put the backpack in on my chest where I'm almost hugging the backpack, now I'm like a rock. I mean, I couldn't miss after that. It was just like, oh, game changer. And if you don't run all those rounds, hundreds of rounds, then you go, now, like you said, Chris, now I can drop down and I know exactly where to put the pack. And then in a matter of like a 3 count, you're on and you can squeeze the trigger.
All right.
You learn a lot too. I mean, you know, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5". I ain't going to tell you how fat I am, but I'm a big guy, right? And I realized after going through those courses, I don't like recoil. I don't manage recoil well. And I don't shoot as well with heavy rounds. So I've learned to speed things up with like 25-06s and 7mm 08s. And I've learned that, you know, big lead kills, but so does speed, you know.
Well,
and having a gun that's fun to shoot at distances that are fun to shoot, it can be it was a game changer in my long distance hunting, getting away from the great big, you know, magnums and getting into speed. So
and I started out doing, you know, 7-rim mag, and I'm like, oh, I hated shooting that thing. And then finally I figured out, it's like, man, I could do the same thing, honestly, with 22-250, except better, because now I'm putting a dime size hole, and it's easy. Well, and I think you're exactly right. I think you look at the recoil management of it, and man, if you like shooting that gun and it doesn't kick you and doesn't beat you up, you're going to enjoy the hunt more, and you're going to be more accurate.
Yeah. Down here in Louisiana, I mean, we don't have big wide open spaces unless you're on a bean field or something like that. And I'll talk to a lot of my friends who are hunters, and a lot of times it'll come up and they'll go, man, I love the 300 Win Mag. It's so powerful and so flat shooting and all that. I'm like, yeah, but, you know, if you're hunting around here and your furthest shot is 200 yards, you don't really have to have a 300 Win Mag to make that shot. And you might, and like, you know, like you're saying, Chris, you could take a 308 or a 6.5 or, you know, heck, a 243, and you might shoot it a lot better and better shot placement, and then the deer just drops.
Absolutely. Or, you know, a lot of trend is if you have a heavy kicker, what they're starting to do, a lot of folks are doing, and I certainly understand it, and I've shot rifles, but they may put a heavier chassis on there. They may put, you know, a brake, maybe a can and that kind of stuff. And I love all that. Trust me, it's fun as it can be. I just don't want to hump around a heavy rifle, you know, elk hunt.
There it is.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah, if you're in a box stand, that's one thing. But if you're actually walking around, you know, out west hunting, that's a different game.
Yeah.
So learning you know, Melvin Forbes is one of my heroes. He made the best mountain rifle, one of the lightest mountain rifles around, and a good friend of Timney's, hillbilly here in my state. I've had several of his rifles. One I'm in love with right now is a 7mm 08. I think the thing weighs 6 pounds scoped. You know?
Now, just for clarification, hillbilly is a term of affection in West Virginia.
Oh, you call me a hillbilly in West Virginia, I'll just slap you back. You call me a hillbilly in downtown Chicago, we might have a different word.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about the other day about a lot of people are doing projects. They're at the house. They can't get out as much. We were talking about people were cleaning guns, reorganizing gun safes. I've seen a lot of people doing that, and projects. So Chris and I were talking the other day about, hey, here's a project you can do at home. And like you said, 75 years ago, it started from kitchen table gunsmithing with Timney and upgrading your guns. I mean, I know people are going to go, but how easy or hard is it? Can I really do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first of all, the Timney only makes triggers that feel like Timney. I know that sounds stupid, but Granddaddy knew what a Timney felt like in a bolt gun, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe Dad knows what a Timney feels like, maybe an AR or whatever, a semi-automatic 1022. But it has to feel like a Timney, first of all. We have to, second of all, it has to be relatively easy to install. Some of our triggers are so simple, like an AR or a 700. Some of them, just because the design may take a little bit, but it still has to be, hey, get the instructions, read them a little bit. But Timmy's been around forever. There's a YouTube channel on every trigger out there, installation. Get a little bit, and you'll be just fine. And it gives you more ownership of your gun, makes you become more accurate with that rifle. And truth be told, it's fun. It's fun. Find an old rifle in the corner that you haven't used in a while, maybe because it's got a nasty trigger on it, whatever. You can change that rifle with a good scope and a good trigger. It's just been done for a long, long time, and it's fun. So
go ahead, KJ.
I think I can't think of a rifle or a gun right now that I own that I shoot often, that the first thing I don't change out is a trigger. And I always pick Timney because, one, they're reliable, and two, they're so easy to do. I'll do it on my kitchen table. We were actually filming last year, Guns and Gear, and we had the Remington 700 trigger, the new one, and the Elite Hunter.
Yeah.
And I brought my gun out there, and we were going on an elk. I was going to go on an elk hunt, and we were like, oh, well, I'll just change out the trigger for the show, and show how easy it was. And we got to the range, and Ryan's like, hey, did you change that trigger out? And I was like, no, I haven't. I thought we were just going to do it right here. On the range, he's like, are you sure about that? And I was like, yeah. And what was it, 7 minutes? I had the trigger changed out, ready to go, and filming, and it's perfect.
And I'll admit, I'm the guy who I've changed out Timney triggers, especially in ARs. It's very easy, but I really am kind of a little reluctant to, put a screwdriver in my hand. I don't want to break things.
See, I'm the total opposite. Just give me something. I'm just going to hammer away and get it done.
You know what it's like though, you're right. It is kind of the little secret ingredient is having a really good trigger in a gun, whatever gun, will improve your shooting, will make you a better shooter, make you a better shot. And I think of it like people who drag race, right? People who drag race, they'll add nitrous, right, in the trunk, and it's a secret. And they'll hit the button and they'll smoke everybody because they have nitrous in their trunk. It's like you could put a Timney in your gun, and they may see it, they may not, but it's kind of like your little secret weapon because people go, what's the deal with this guy? You're like, well, I kind of have a little secret under the hood.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, the Model 700 came out in 1962, right? One of the most popular platforms, been cloned. And, we were asked to make a trigger in 1965. So the secret's been out there a long time on upgrading. Now,
crazy.
Guys, it's become more in vogue and more popular. And as more guns come out, platform guns come out, people expect to be able to find good ammunition. They expect to be able to find good accessories like a scope or a laser or a light, and they expect to have a good trigger. So they call us up, and we put our engineers on it, and if we can make it feel like a Timney, we'll come to market with it. So it's kind of cool.
Hey, I do have a question.
Yeah.
What's the deal with Calvin?
The Calvin Elite. The Calvin is actually a guy that works there.
Yes. What is the deal with, because last year we were wanting to kind of do a fun bit about Calvin because, I mean, he's kind of a legend. Even if you don't know him, Calvin Elite triggers.
Yeah.
What's the deal with Calvin? Give us a little insight.
What's the background?
Yeah, Calvin and I started, I was freelance at that time. Calvin started, I think, 3 or 4 months before me. Calvin has the most beautiful mind when it comes to looking at metal, looking at parts, and figuring out, can we make that? How do we make that? Can we make it a Timney? He's absolutely, I hate to use the word genius because we overuse it, but he is so good at looking at how to cut metal and aluminum, how to use CNCs, and what's the end product going to look at before it's even built. And we wanted to celebrate Calvin. He's been with us a long time, so we came up with the Calvin Elite Series. And what it was, we said, hey, Calvin, can you make the ultimate, whatever, if it was 1022, AR, 700, whatever, some of our popular ones, can you make the utmost? And at that time, that was the best trigger that Calvin's brain, our engineers, our machines, and all Americans could assemble at that time. He's a trigger whisperer, man. I don't know what else to say. You know?
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny, because it has become, the Calvin Elite. We know about the Calvin Elite, but it's always funny because you go, yeah, it's a real guy. He's the brains
like a real guy.
Thing. Yeah.
He's a humble man. He's a smart man, obviously, and he just absolutely has a passion for improving a product, making it a Timney when folks asking for it. It just turns his crank, man. God bless him.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people who listen to this, a lot of them are into the AR build craze. I'm going to build my own AR, customize it all out. I know you guys have brought out some new things for that. And I kind of want you to talk about what are a few options, but also how do they choose? Because you have a lot of different AR triggers.
Absolutely. So again, Timney's been around forever by listening to our customers. One of the examples we got right now, a couple of them was, our customers were wanting a budget-minded built trigger, right? So they could start, it was a trend to start building their own ARs, but our premium triggers may put them out of a price point where they couldn't enjoy a Timney. So again, we looked at Calvin and said, all right, Calvin, how do you make it a Timney, but how do you make it cheaper? More or less, inexpensive.
Right, sure.
And Calvin figured out machines and testing and installation and that kind of stuff, and figured out a way that it's a great entry-level Timney. Now, of course, we still have our mid-grade level, then we have the Calvin Elite above that, and then we got a racing trigger, Daniel Horner's new trigger. So we cross the gamut from the first AR build you've ever made all the way up to you want to win every 3-gun match in your state, nation, county, America, I don't care. But that's what you got to do when you're entering a market and you want to touch all facets of it, from first-time budget builder to Daniel Horner, right? So that's how we do it. That's our logic. If you want to pull a trigger, we want it to be a Timney.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because
it's going to have that feel, the Timney feel. I mean, that's one of the most important things you can get out of a Timney is the feel.
Well, and it's funny because you think, well, we have an AR trigger. You would, people who don't know would go, well, then you have an AR trigger. But like you've got, I don't know, half a dozen of them that are for different purposes or different preferences, really, because a trigger is a real personal thing of what you prefer.
Right. Exactly. Like the Impact, that's the one I'm talking about we built for the budget. It's been very popular right now because it's a great trigger. Is it good, better, best? It's good, right? It's still a Timney. We're not going to put anything out that's not, up to Timney quality. Is there good, better, best above that? Yeah. And this is just like not all Toyota trucks come with Bose radios, right?
Right.
Sure. But if you want a Bose radio, you ought to be able to get one. Same difference.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, KJ was doing some social media stalking on you.
I always do.
So I mean, really, not for this show, not for this show, but just because he just has a weird affection towards you, I guess. But no.
So I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions, and it's kind of an either or deal. So
if I slam my computer, forgive me.
Real quick. How do people? When is your book going to be available? Because you just came out with, and it's hunting, fishing, and family, right?
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. So this is just totally personal. I've been an outdoor writer for several newspapers in the state of West Virginia since 2007. I write a weekly column. And then back when I was an outfitter, one of the owners of one of our popular resorts was like, hey, man, you ought to take a photo and write this down. And I was like, well, I don't want to compete with the national writers, right, or regional writers. I'm a PR guy. I don't want to be a writer. But when I grew up on Elk River, there was a Sunday sports page that had an outdoor writer that just wrote about granddad stories or catching menace stories or whatever.
Right.
And I saw we were missing that, and I was like, man, there's got to be kids that they're craving this stuff, and a Sunday newspaper sports section is. So I wrote a bunch of those, and then a publisher here in West Virginia Book Company, got together with the newspapers and made sure everything was all legal beagle and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And he picked a bunch of stories and put them in there, and I'm honored. I'm happy to serve that market. So I guess you go to westvirginiabookcompany.com or something, and you can type in Ellis, and I'll show up.
All right, now we're gonna do a quick rapid fire. Hard copy or digital?
Hard copy.
Thundering Herd or Mountaineers? I knew that was going to get you.
Thundering Herd.
A bass lake or a trout stream?
Trout stream.
Oh, I might have guessed different on that one. You're a pretty good stick either way. I know that. Turkey Woods or the Deer Woods?
Turkey Woods.
Yep. Especially now. The AR Impact or Calvin Elite?
Oh, I got to stick with Calvin Elite, man. He's taken me so far.
Oh, I know. AR-15 or AR-10?
I like an AR-15. Again, I don't like guns that – I'm not a heavy hitter guy. So.
Yep. All right, probably the most important question we have on here, 9mm or 45 ACP?
Again, I like speed, 9mm.
All right. That's it.
Thank you, Chris. That was awesome.
Thanks for being on with us, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm in West Virginia. There ain't a whole lot going on. So if you find yourself in this neck of the woods, it wouldn't be hard to find me. Just say, hey, where's the big hillbilly? Talks are allowed. They'll go.
Yeah. He's over there. Well, good. You guys look for Chris's book out there. What's it called again?
Oh, it's called Hunting, Fishing, and Family, Stories from West Virginia Hills.
Cool. And if you're bored, you're sitting around wanting to tinker with your guns, look up, it's timneytriggers.com, right?
Yep, look up timneytriggers.com. There's a bunch of information there. We've got the best customer service and technical support. So if you're like Ryan, you're like, I don't know how to put this trigger in. We got folks that'll do it for you or walk you through it. Either way.
It's not really that hard. It's also not so expensive that, the wife's going to give you a hard time. It comes in a real small package. You can sneak it by. With all the other mail that comes in the mail, you're good. It's not like buying a whole big new rifle.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate it, man.
See ya.
All right.